China de novo emerged on July 4th, 2020.
It received global support in efforts to exorcise communism from China. 1.4 billion Chinese people continue to suffer under the atheistic and totalitarian communist regime.
Join the whistleblower movement and save the world from COVID-19 and the evil mastermind behind it.
Navarro, Jen Psaki sat up there and she's stumbling through this thing. She can't get her notes, but she says it's complex. It's interagency process, twice interagency process. But the pull, the buried lead was we are going to have patience, strategic patience when it comes to China. What say you, Dr. Navarro?
Well, two things. We've seen strategic patience. This is the third Obama-Biden administration because that was their plan back in the first 8 years of this, and we know how that worked out in terms of foreign policy. But let me show you something here for your video for people watching on TV, and I'll walk you through for the radio audience. But this is kind of what my takeaway. There's four main things that came out of that. One thing, Steve, that really was stunning to me was how bleak a forecast Xi gave for the global economy. And he's absolutely right. We have big trouble ahead. But then he goes on to say, bullet point number one was he's asking for macro coordination, which is basically code words for saying, leave us alone. We want to continue with our unfettered Chinese mercantilism. The second thing is he used this rhetoric of, quote, mutual respect and win-win while we steal from you, by the way. And again, those are just code words for leave our authoritarian system alone. Don't talk to us about human rights. We're going to do whatever the heck we want in Asia. Get out of our grill. The third thing was just a tip of the hat to the usual north-south, the northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere rhetoric, where China has really tried to woo Latin America, Africa, and all the poorer countries. And then he finished with essentially globalism, a cry for globalism with Chinese characteristics. That was my takeaway from this. What we didn't hear, as you said, was any acceptance for responsibility for the CCP virus that is killing now millions around this country.
The U.S. Senate has confirmed Janet Yellen as President Biden's Treasury Secretary, making her the first woman to hold the position in its 232-year history. On Monday, the former Fed chair won overwhelming bipartisan support in the Senate with 84 votes for and only 15 against. Yellen will spearhead the Biden administration's drive to revive the American economy that's been crippled by the pandemic.
On Monday, U.S. President Joe Biden signed an executive order reversing a Trump-era Pentagon policy that largely barred transgender individuals from serving in the military. Immediately, this prohibits any service members from being forced out of the military on the basis of gender identity. The order will also have all military records be corrected for those who had been affected by Trump's ban.
I see that China last Friday passed a law that will allow them to fire on foreign vessels, and then 24 hours later they fly 30 nuclear-equipped war bombers over the top of Taiwanese airspace. What is going on at the moment, Jim? They've ratcheted this up, haven't they?
They have ratcheted it up. There's no two ways about it. They're putting a bit of pressure on President Biden. And this was expected. Everyone's predicted that this was going to occur. The big question is how far are they going to push it? And they didn't have to pass that legislation, which not only allowed them to use the weaponry and of their Coast Guard and their militia, but it allowed them to do a large number of other things that were, in my view, acts of war. Particularly as it's applied to something such as the South China Sea, which is not internationally recognised as Chinese territory. And of course, we had about 12 or 13 aircraft which flew through the ADIZ, the Air Defence Identification Zone of Taiwan, crossed the midline on Saturday, and guess what happened on Sunday? They did it again with the largest number of aircraft.
Right.
The United States has deployed a carrier battle group into the South China Sea. I don't think it'll go near Taiwan. They'll have. They've admitted that they've got nuclear submarines, which will sit in the vicinity of Taiwan as the first reaction. So I don't think the carrier battle group will go there. The problem is, Chris, that war, and we're in conflict now. People seem to accept the fact that we're in conflict with China. What it's called is grey zone conflict. The probability of war, I think it is. It's not just possible and it is possible because people are armed to the teeth. And we're seeing that right this very second.
Yeah.
But it's much more likely than most people are talking about.
A professor at MIT named Gang Chen was charged with hiding work he did for the Chinese government while also collecting dollars here in the U.S. to do nanotechnology research. Some of the charges included wire fraud. According to the Associated Press, authorities said that Chen entered into an undisclosed contract or contracts and held meetings with the Chinese while working at MIT. The professor reportedly acted as a, quote, overseas expert for the Chinese government at the request of the People's Republic of China consulate in New York City. Chen and his research group also collected $29 million in foreign currency, including millions of dollars from a Chinese government-funded university. So what's going on here? Let's welcome in Gordon Chang now. Another scary and sobering reminder of how deep the roots of the Confucius Society, the Chinese Communist Party, and their influence on these college campuses actually is. Now, of course, Gang Chen charged at this point. He deserves due process like everybody else, but the evidence is damning.
Yes, and certainly there have been so many Gang Chens in American academia. He's just not the only one. And what is particularly worrying about this is that you've got the president of his institution, MIT, and nearly 100 of his colleagues writing a letter supporting him when they don't even know. This just seems to me that they're taking the side of China over the United States, which shows you how effective Beijing's penetration of the American scientific community has been.
And the point here is that Gang Chen is not the only one that you would suspect is doing something like this. You know, how much money, Gordon, do we think is being thrown around on college campuses?
Yeah, we don't have an estimate, but, you know, we're obviously talking about hundreds of millions of dollars because we're talking about so many different academics who have been basically corrupted with huge amounts of Chinese cash. And the story about this is that you had the New York consulate trying to recruit Gang Chen, and it's tried to recruit others to spy for China. And yet we haven't closed the New York consulate. That's a failure on our part, John.
However, I hope our fans can remember, with those problems and crises the CCP is currently facing, and 1 million arrested CCP members and its political crisis, and the struggles between Xi and the four families, and the freight superpower Zheng Qinghong, the CCP is done for. Now I can see the speed at which the CCP is racing towards extent much better than before. The process of the CCP's downfall could be as funny as the 2020 US election. Be prepared. With each passing day, it's January 26th today. The sun still rises from the east. With each passing second, the CCP is heading towards crisis. Even now, she still has not come out into the daylight to let someone film or photographing. There may be a war at Taiwan Strait. Hong Kong is on the brink of death. The virus pandemic in China and the world, and the new virus strand which poses a great threat to mankind. Do you think the CCP will end well?
Dr. Yan tweeted a video that shows how CCP hit the real backbone of the COVID-19 virus before the bad woman Shi Zhengli threw out the fake RTG virus. Professor Yun Guoyong pointed out ZC45, ZXC21 bad viruses are the most close to SARS-CoV-2 after sequences released on January 10, 2020. Dr. Yan continues to say that CCP media helped the government to drive the public attention away from the ZC45, ZXC21 viruses, which were owned by the Chinese military. She also realized the secret behind after the analysis and intelligence collected on January 17, 2020, which were revealed on Lude Media on January 19, 2020. The War Room Show co-host Rahim retweeted that the Dr. Fuji founded a now-deleted Wuhan study. It has the same transmission pathway as the CCP virus. Senator Blackhorn tweeted, "Relisting companies that have ties to the People's Liberation Army is the threat to U.S. national security." Trump established the office of the former president. Senator Tom Cotton says all evidence points to the Wuhan Institute of Virology as the source of the virus. Former Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen was confirmed as the first woman to head the U.S. Treasury. Italy's Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte has resigned. Beijing outbreak fast spreads. Many communities were shut down. The residents shipped to quarantine centers. The CCP now uses sandbags to block resident stores, not even giving them a chance to leave. According to world meters, 100 million people have contracted the CCP virus in the world. That Huanqiu reports that CCP repeatedly flies its fighter jets over Taiwan's air defense identification zone, claiming Taiwan is an inseparable part of China. This led Taiwan to alert its fighter jets to be prepared to defend themselves. The People's Daily reports that Harbin City entered the COVID high-risk tier. A number of other cities and regions moved to an upper tier also. CCP Mosby's Xinhua reports that Dr. Fuxi says lessons learned in the U.S. COVID situation is that it is divided and politicized country. The CCP is rejoicing at what COVID has wrong in the U.S. On January 25th, the Xinjing newspaper reports that 235,000 orphans will get 1,140 yuan per month state benefit. But the question is, the number of orphans living in China far exceeds 235,000. So what about those who aren't properly registered? CCTV News reports that the WHO says COVID-19 is likely to continue to live with us for a long time. Does this mean that CCP is continuously releasing virus? The global economy has taken a major hit due to the COVID-19. Meanwhile, the Chinese media reports that the World Economic Forum executive Jeremy Eugene predicts that China will achieve economic growth that exceeds people's expectation in the next decade. CCP Mosby's Huanqiu reports that on the backdrop of the gloomy economic outlook around the world, China stands out as the country that attracts the most foreign direct investment. The CCP's shameless bragging and brainwashing knows no bounds. Huanqiu reports that Chief Executive Carrie Lam hopes the Biden administration fairly treats Hong Kong's national security law. Whitewashing such a draconian law is something that CCP is very good at doing. Huanqiu reports India to impose a permanent ban on 59 Chinese apps by June this year without providing reasons. 3 PL jets were reported to have flown over western Beijing, making people suspect the CCP internal power struggles. Huawei has become a sponsor of German governmental meetings. The CCP's tentacle is slowly but surely corroding German democracy.
你书包毛毛哪儿了？
哎，给人送米去了啊！看穿防护服的俩人送米，不知道谁家，1、2、3、4、5、6、7、8个人去摄像。哎呦，全拎照相机，家厉害。
没想到36万人口的城市被隔离的人员是3万多啊，整个疫情失控。其实比这个病毒更可怕的是，由于用这种方式来抗疫，小区门是封的，单元门是封的，就连我们的房门也是封的，外面所有的超市店家全都是封闭的，街上空无一人。然后如果有人违反规定出去的话，会被抓去拘留，车出去的话会被扣掉，就是居家隔离，为了疫情的控制。但是这种居家隔离没有食品的供应，现在在人民日报下面通化人的评论接连，有的人家真的没有吃的了，许多年轻人他们白天习惯了平时出去工作，中午不在家里吃饭，晚上到老人那吃饭，这突然间的封城没有任何准备。我看到有人写说那水果，有的那人家2个孩子3天只吃了1个苹果，还有的人真的没有菜了，就吃米饭拌着酱油，就是这样的情况。然后那个饿了么那些网上能订购蔬菜日用品的，他们根本配送不过来，志愿者报了名需要层审批，都达不到要求，他们的配送就是杯水车薪。我发出去这样的许多消息，有的群说方方之后再无方方了，的确那种帮助他人呼求的声音被压制之后就没有了。但是通化现在就是这样的情况，所有的医院、传染病医院、市医院、中心医院，所有的病人都驱散了回家。
The CCP's so-called revolution-based Yan'an had protested while workers gathered in front of a pharmacy company for equal pay and benefits. A female reporter had a body conflict with the police when she was interviewing a minor in the People Hospital of Qixia City in Yantai, Shandong. She got her leg hurt and needed a syringe is still under investigation. What are you doing? What are you doing? Are you the police for the people? What are you doing? I tell you, you must pay medical help. The hospital claimed that the hospital's closed environment. The minor requests raised, and the better idea to intervene and his condition stabilize, except family relative, other people should not visit him.
人民医院那边都是封闭的，因为现在那个矿工他需要静养，可能采访或者拍摄得等着人家身体情况稳定以后吧。现在好像谁都不能，除了家属，可能一般是不让近身的。
CCP got money from citizens hold negative COVID test result with 3 days, along with great QR code. Man is still quarantined. My son studied at Dalian University of Technology, and that a low-risk area for safety. My son went back with COVID test with 3 days. They quarantined my son in the hotel once. They heard that my son came back from Ganxing Dalian. My son followed the instruction and then attempted to explain to the hotel quarantine staffs. And they say they don't know which is unfriendly, as if they were the king, and it's their house. It's their place, and they do not recognize his place and low risk, and record that my son came back from medium high risk and quarantine instead. The son's mother showed QR code and negative COVID test report. With a low-income family, we need a syringe for university. The hotel charged $200 a day, which is a heavy burden to the bear. Yongding Hospital announced that they found COVID on the handle of the door on January 24th. 14 medical staff who touched it are tested positive, negative. The hospital stopped providing service since January 24th to contaminate the disease. How did that get found out? It's only 6 kilometers from here, hard to protect. Monetary policy community of PBC and margin must be taken keep real estate security. Now, we're probably still immersed in the real estate investment origin. The price likely raise continuous because everybody obsessed with investment. Then what? But it would be to guess too completely. If bubble burst after 2 or 3 years, then it would not just be real estate crisis. It would become massive fancy crisis. The precedent in Indonesia in the Asian fancy crisis, which fell into 10 years insulation and standstill. If that happened, we may not have 10 or 20 years for recovery. If we come to standstill, it would be a moment of life or death. The price of vegetable in China rose sharply. Hello everybody, Spring Festival is coming. The price of pineapple Xinyang City is recording. Look, it's about 20 yuan per kilo. What the hell? The deplorable can afford the pineapple in the Spring Festival. Garlic sprout is 91.6 per kilo. Fake data about smog from CCP government. January 26, 1 o'clock p.m. The data show heavy pollution PM 2.5 between 200 about 340, but actually, not a single person can be seen. CCP propaganda brainwashes, although deplorable in China. I'm Zhong Nanshan in Guangzhou. I want to say thank you to everybody who stays where you are in the Spring Festival. Spring Festival is the most important festival for every Chinese citizen. But this year, 10 million people choose to stand up the pandemic. Everybody who gave union with family is a hero.
这骨头都便宜，4块钱1斤大骨头。这个五花肉是120一公斤，120是6块钱，6块钱。
你看看排骨多少钱1斤啊？我给你看看啊，你给我看好了，这是1斤，你还吃排骨？一些地方官不会成功找办法，专为他们失败找理由。这岁数大的不能打，这个糖尿病的、高血压的、孕妇等等不能打。我告诉你。 必须打，死如果不得（括号不能让他死在监狱），那死在监狱他妈事儿也老大了。
董世明还在录音里说，殴打访民之后，派4个大夫、8个护士给看10天，又称必须把这些人给拘了，拘10天之后都写了保证书、悔过书，效果非常好。 他还说，把访民抓起来一判刑就非常老实。据悉，董世明因为打人立功，去年3月已经升任呼伦贝尔市司法局局长。大陆民众卢女士表示，这是中共的国策，所以各地解访人员才敢对访民殴打、关黑监狱，甚至把访民打死打残。
这个就是中国的现状嘛，只不过是这个局长，然后在内部会议上说出来了。其实每个信访局、公安局的，然后每个地方的维稳的机构的，基本上都会有这种做法。
亲爱的战友们啊，这是一场人类上前所未有的话语权、信仰和宗教、经济和政治、人性和道德一场彻底的大转变，无人可以挡，只是谁来改变。你扮演了什么角色，谁都挡不了，这就是时代。
我们真正是感受到了爆料革命这些东西深入咱们战友每个家庭、每个生命的每个部分，都是一家一家的支持爆料革命。爆料革命成了很多战友生命中不可缺少的，而且是五湖四海。而且我真也没想到，世界上原来这么多战友支持我，无处不在，没有任何国家，没有任何地方，非洲的、南美洲的、亚洲的、东欧的、北欧的、西欧的，那北美洲就不用说了。
全人类真正的开始了一个从来想都不敢想，就是消灭共产党，因为他杀了全世界人，这个仇多大？谁想送回去？永远不可能，没有一个人敢谈。
我发现咱中国人真是憋的时间太长了，这个力量太大了，集结真正的力量，准备着没有共产党的新中国，我们每个人要扮演的角色。
灭共没你不行。